Hello, everybody, and welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy channel. Thank you for clicking by. This is a series on grape variety. So I take a specific individual grape variety and go through its key characteristics, its key aromas and flavors, and then where we find it in the world. This is very useful for those of you wanting to know more about a specific grape variety, and also for those of you studying, because this follows the WSET Level 3 syllabus very, very closely. Okay, let's look at our really famous grape variety, Regal, Royal. This is the Nebbiolo, in the past been given the moniker of the King of Grapes, the Grape of Kings. It is the variety behind such great names as Barolo and Barbaresco. So we have some fabulous wines, but please remember this is just for the level 3 syllabus, which only features those two wines I just mentioned. There are others, of course, produced from this exceptionally important grape variety. If you do have any questions, comments, please do get in touch. Perhaps you've tried some Nebbiolo. Maybe you like Barolo more than Barbaresco or vice versa. What do you think about the tannins? What do you think of the best aging length for this style of wine? Please do let me know. Let's go through its key characteristics. So Nebbiolo is a black grape variety with very high levels of acidity and tannin, but little color. It's quite pale in color. Now that is interesting because generally, when we generalize about the world of wine, the paler the red, normally the lighter, but this is a deceptive little number. It's pale. You expect it to be more delicate, but when you come to taste it, it's rather grippy and acidic and so on. Now, in the best years, the wines are full-bodied with high acidity and tannin, of course, and they have a brilliant ability to develop in bottle. I've put the acidity here as high and tannin. So on the right-hand side is a small chart to visually depict what this wine's characteristics are. So when it's 5 colored in, that means high, same as tannin. I've done 4 out of 5 for body. It usually is towards full, but there are some more elegant styles out there as well. So that's medium plus. And alcohol is a 3-point scale, low, medium, or high, and this is high. The wines are typically barrel aged, and I'll go through that with both Barolo and Barbaresco very shortly. Now, what do you expect in terms of its aromas and flavors? Now, Nebbiolo grapes ripen slowly at altitudes here, which are fairly high, and it develops perfumed aromas, including sour cherries, herbs, and sometimes dried flowers. Most Nebbiolo will benefit from time aging, barrel and bottle, very importantly. Now, this continues to soften the tannins, and it adds further complexity, giving the wine typically things like cigar, truffle, tar, and leather. And that's what you see in this picture. A bounty of red fruits, floral compounds, often towards dried with a bit of age, and then truffle, earthy, tar, cigar, and so on. Very haunting grape variety, this one. So where do we find it in the world? Of course, we are focusing on Italy, and I've highlighted on the map here the northwest of Italy, which is Piemonte, the foot of the mountains. So a very famous area, has Torino as its capital, and we're heading down to the southern section of Piemonte, bordering Liguria, where we find a province called Cuneo, and we are around the city of Alba for our 2 wine styles. So Alba would, on this map, I've given you the Barolo on the left. Alba would just be to the north, around this area for you there. Now, Barolo is kind of like a horseshoe-shaped valley spanning 11 villages, which have been identified on that map just there. We are on steep south-facing slopes at an altitude of about 300 to 500 meters. Barolo DOCG, which is the garantita for quality, must be 100% Nebbiolo. And typically for a Barolo, the grapes are sourced from all over that map from different villages and then labeled just as Barolo. But a village name may appear on the label if it's sourced from that area purely, so exclusively. So, for example, La Morra, Veduno, Serralonga d'Alba, they can feature on the label if the grapes do come from that area specifically and exclusively. The best wines actually come from named vineyard sites, which are called crus, such as the example I've given you here, Canubi. That is, in fact, a cru site of very high esteem. Now, the Barolo DOCG must be aged for 38 months in total before release. So that means 18 months minimum in oak, and then you need to top it up with a minimum 20 months in bottle before release. Now, traditionally, Barolo was aged for several years in large oak barrels, often sourced from Croatia, Slavonian oak, and that was to soften the very astringent, harsh tannins. But today, with improvements in the vineyard and gentler methods of extraction, we actually have a result in wine which are smoother in tannin, riper in tannin, and they are choosing to age their wines for around the minimum, maybe just a little bit more. Oak maturation may take place in small barrels, sometimes with a little bit of new oak, or larger casks, which are called botti. Barriques are the smaller ones, botti are your larger ones, but most producers are doing a combination of the two. Our last village is the Barbaresco DOCG. This is a smaller wine growing area, as the map shows you on the left-hand side, only spanning a few villages. It has south-facing slopes at lower altitudes on average than Barolo. This is typically 200 to 400, compared to Barolo's 300 to 500. The lower altitude and also the influence from this river. So the map, you'll see the closeness of the River Tanaro, and in the picture in the background, you'll see the closeness of the River Tanaro. Now, this warming effect from that river, plus the warmer conditions of lower altitudes, mean that the Nebbiolo here ripens earlier in comparison to Barolo. So therefore, it is fruitier, but less perfumed and also less structured. They are beautiful wines, Barbarescos. They tend to be a little bit more approachable than most Barolo, but I am generalizing, of course. So yes, Barbaresco. Similar acidity and tannin, but not so intensive. And of course, you can age these. By law, Barbaresco DOCG must be aged for 26 months in total, compared to Barolo's 38, and 9 months in oak, compared to Barolo's double that of 18 months. That tells you immediately that the law and the regulation is there, and it's less because the wines are a bit more approachable than Barolo. You might find labels that have some mentions of villages or vineyards, but it's less common. Here is the largest producer, which is the Produttori del Barbaresco, which is the cooperative, very famous and very high quality wines made from those guys. Okay, that brings me to a conclusion looking at Nebbiolo. If you do have any questions or comments, please do get in touch. Perhaps you've tried the example wines I've shown. Maybe you have some other recommends. What's your favorite gastronomy to serve with a Nebbiolo? Please do get in touch. But until next time, I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Goodbye.